Hello, I'm Charlie Brooker and you're watching Newswipe, a programme all about what's been going on, such as this. Government raises national bewilderment level from substantial to severe. Furious coverage as chocolate protesters tell Kraft you can stick your Toblerone and you know what, we'll even warm it up so it slips in more easily. And astonishing scenes as Prince William tours New Zealand as his alter ego Owl Man.
The Queen started tweeting a few months ago.
But we start, well, there is only one place to start, unfortunately. From the moment the first reports of the Haiti disaster began to trickle in, it was clear this was an immense catastrophe. A torrent of harrowing and apocalyptic imagery turned every news bulletin into a nightmare of heartbreaking proportions. We'll be looking at the coverage in more detail next week. Anyway, at a time when the bulk of the news is taken up with an immense humanitarian disaster, what is a dumb, topical show like ours, which thrives on taking the piss out of news coverage, supposed to do? Well, what does the news do when it's short of suitable things to cover? There are plenty of stories the news can practically just pluck off the shelves, ready formed. Here are just a few of them.
Controversy.
Controversy is a gift for the news because by reporting on the controversy, you help feed the controversy, which means you can then do a report on how this controversy is growing by the hour. A good recent example is the case of radical cleric Anjem Choudhury. Recently, Choudhury and Islam for UK said they wanted to stage a protest in which 500 demonstrators carrying empty coffins to represent Muslims killed in Afghanistan would march through the symbolic town of Wootton Bassett. Now, this was merely an announcement, but because Choudhury, seen here relaxing on the plush GMTV sofa like he's Joe Swash, has recently become a minor rent-a-jihadi gob media figure, his proposed march became big news. Soon after it was announced, it was all over the papers, while TV reporters hit Wootton Bassett to urgently canvass opinion.
And the other issue here that many have voiced to me is that this was all a publicity stunt.
All Mr Choudhury really wants is publicity.
Come on, it can't just be a publicity stunt. The news wouldn't fall for that. Meanwhile, back at the studio, it was the subject of an illuminating yes-no debate.
All this is really a publicity stunt.
Now, come on, it can't just be a publicity stunt. That would just provoke friction and outrage between Muslim people and others in Britain.
One of the aims of his group is to provoke friction and outrage between Muslim people and others in Britain.
Yeah, well, thank God the news isn't helping with that. By 6 o'clock, the unpublicity non-stunt was second in the running order on ITV's evening news. They started by giving valuable airtime to Choudhury himself. Weirdly, he almost made it sound like a publicity stunt.
Wootton Bassett has been chosen because it will raise awareness and it will gain notoriety in the media.
They also spoke to the relatives of dead soldiers, interviewed the mayor, and told us half the internet was opposed to the idea. Plenty of promotional material for Anjem's forthcoming march, a march which definitely wasn't just a publicity stunt.
If publicity was the aim of a march in the first place, then the organisers have already achieved that.
It's a bloody good job it isn't then. By 10 o'clock, Choudhury's concrete and detailed plans for his absolutely positively going to happen protest march had made it to #1 in the news parade.
Anger and revulsion at plans by Muslim extremists to take their protest to the streets of Wootton Bassett.
As the bearded unfunny man's face loomed large on the deck of the USS Newsy Prize, we were told the march looked set to cause upset, conflict and division. Of course, causing conflict, upset and division was presumably the last thing on ITN's mind when it gave Choudhury more airtime by putting him in a room with a man who'd lost his son in Afghanistan and filming the inevitable subsequent row.
So, Juliet, a lot of upset already. Can this march really take place?
Can it take place? Come on, it's not just some publicity stunt, you know.
I think there's extremely little chance that it will.
What?
The reality is they haven't asked for permission.
No?
They haven't even got a date set.
What?
It's merely an aspiration at the moment.
No permission, no date, only an aspiration. You're talking as though this whole march thing was just the absurd pipe dream of some bunch of jobless, hype-hungry bellends all along.
When I talked to Mr Choudhury earlier today, he said he was both privately amazed and really quite delighted that two little words, as he described them, Wootton Bassett, had afforded him this level of publicity.
Well, like in a publicity stunt. This march was clearly never going to happen. It was just a provocative wish, as deliberately incendiary as a member of the BNP saying they were going to build a mosque out of bacon in the centre of Bradford. But by merely suggesting something outrageous, Anjem and co were granted thousands, possibly millions of pounds worth of free publicity. In news terms, he'd given good story. Trouble is, that meant an extremist, about as representative of Muslims as Nick Griffin is of the English, temporarily became the primary face of Islam, causing a level of public and tabloid anger far greater than the size of his following, as moderate Muslims were keen to point out in a reflective and well-balanced report on ITN.
They represent a very, very small proportion of the Muslim community in this country. They do thrive on this sort of publicity, which is why it's even more important for more media outlets to pay attention to alternative Muslim voices and not give these people the disproportionate publicity they crave.
Yeah, whatever. Anjem's about to say something outrageous. Eventually, the government got involved, banning Islam for UK outright, which might not make much difference, as Andrew Neil Tetchley suggested during a confrontational encounter on the Daily Politics.
You will reassemble, won't you?
Well, look, let me put it like this. If I gather together with my friends in a local park and I decide to eat together, we decide to write a leaflet and even distribute it in the market, is that now illegal?
No, it's a picnic. Speaking of extreme Islamists, here's our resident poet Tim Key with a bit of verse about the Taliban. That should be a laugh.
This poem is about the Taliban, which is, I suppose, the closest we have is the... well, we don't really have one. You have to, it's one of these things where you have to travel to really see it properly in its own environment. The Taliban should be bloody banned. If I ran Iran or Afghanistan, wasn't sure which one, I'd ban them, I'd can them, I'd fan them, which is, in brackets, light them and then fan them to get the flames going up them. And then I'd lock up the leaders and re-educate the followers. Try and get some progress over there. Try and restore a little bit of law and order in that neck of the woods.
Trends.
Trends. Now there's a vague category. It's just stuff, basically. Any old shit that's happening.
Now, the handbag is perhaps a woman's most important possession, crammed with all the stuff we need. But while bags might have got bigger, they've also become lighter.
Yes, during a short 20-minute news bulletin in the midst of the Haiti disaster, 5 News still considered it a slow enough news day to ring an entire wacky news item from the trend for women's handbags getting lighter.
It's a medically proven fact that without handbags, women would cease to function.
Just like lungs, really.
But something is changing. Their handbags are getting lighter.
Why? What's changed? I have to know.
We used to carry the full makeup kit here. We used to carry the larger purse. And we also used to carry our whole lifestyle, so our MP3 player, our phone and our diary. Whereas now we carry more of a smaller purse, full of our cards, a smartphone, and we also carry a makeup compact, which is eyeshadow, blush, lip and foundation.
So less is definitely more.
Absolutely.
You know there's people dying in the world, don't you? But fearless investigator Peter Lane isn't done yet. He takes a set of scales into the mall and weighs women's handbags. Only to discover that the whole lighter bag theory he's based his report on is bullshit.
Does it feel heavy?
It does actually, yeah.
Has it got any lighter in recent years?
No.
Social issues.
Try as we might, we just can't make society go away, which means social issues will always be with us and always all over the news. ITN recently managed to wring a whole week's worth of material out of the hoary old problem of nightmare neighbours, with a series of special reports exposing the depressing truth about ASBOs. This focused on one troublesome family in particular, detailing their identities and their activities in the style of a CIA intelligence briefing explaining an episode of Shameless.
Members of your family saying, fatty this, fat slag, things like that?
Total and utter rubbish.
How would that make you feel if every time you left your house you were called something like that?
What's in a name?
What's in a name? If every time you left the house you were insulted like that, how do you think you would feel?
I love it when news at 10 boils down to 2 blokes squabbling incoherently on a pavement.
I grew up in school getting names called at me.
That doesn't make it right,
I know it doesn't
Mr.
make
Jill.
it right, but at the end of the day...
This is a bit like watching a play written by a dog.
How does it feel to be at the head of a family where most people have got ASBOs?
It's annoying.
Here's one we made earlier.
If all else fails and you've still got airtime to fill, you can go out and make up your own news. Just put a reporter there and get him to do anything. It'll do.
Who needs to ask questions if you can read people's minds?
Yeah, but who needs to read people's minds if you can ask them questions? Here, in one of the most mental news reports ever created, Sky News took a cross-section of Brits, popped sensors on their heads and made them watch clips of contemporary Britain to see what their minds did.
Using sensors attached to their heads which pick up electrical impulses, we analysed how they responded to various images. The most negative response came from Christine, who considers herself an English patriot. Her graph revealed a strong dislike of various ethnic scenes.
You know, Various Ethnic Scenes was actually the working title for Slumdog Millionaire.
Look at the contrasting brain maps. On the left is when Christine was looking at Muslim women wearing veils. On the right was when she saw a Union Jack.
Just as well they didn't show her Anjem Chowdhury. The sensor might have exploded.
It's nice to have diversity, but people should try and get along and mix in more.
Well, you're certainly doing your best to mix in with your mad hat. As you can see, TV news journalists aren't just journalists, but little filmmakers, and the tools of their artistic trade have grown more powerful as time has gone by. Early news reports were painstakingly constructed using cumbersome equipment, which meant the resulting films themselves were often quotidian, murky, shoddily framed snooze fests about brown rivers and closing factories, although on the plus side the reporters were bloody sexy.
To make matters worse, the manager of the local employment office says that in the jobs for which the people here are trained, that's weaving and winding, the prospects of finding similar work in Skelmersdale are non-existent.
As technology improved, news reports became snazzier, more mobile, more visually playful. Before long, a standard news report visual language established itself, one that's immediately recognisable to anyone. Me has this report. It starts here, with a lacklustre establishing shot of a significant location. Next, a walkie-talkie preamble from the auteur, pacing steadily towards the lens, punctuating every other sentence with a hand gesture and ignoring all the pricks milling around him like he's gliding through the fucking Matrix, before coming to a halt and posing a question. What comes next? Often something like this, a filler shot designed to give your eyes something to look at while my voice babbles on about facts. Sometimes it'll slow down to a halt, turn monochrome, and some of those facts will appear one by one on the screen. This is followed by the obligatory shots of overweight people with their faces subtly framed out, after which the report is padded out with a selection of lazy and pointless vox pops.
Usually get some inane chatter from people.
I think they do have too much. I think what we want to hear is actually what's happening and not what other people think of it.
I hate these sound bites. I don't want some punter's opinion usually. No.
Another bit of dull visual abstraction to plug another gap now before the report segues gracefully into a bit of human interest courtesy of some dowdy man opening letters in a kitchen and explaining how he's been affected by the issue.
When I'm watching the news, I don't really, there's a person talking to me, telling me what's going on, and I don't really listen to what they're saying. It's just news. It's just news.
He, unfortunately, was boring, so to wake you up, this is an animated chart, this is a silhouette representing the average family, and this is a lighthouse keeper being beheaded by a laser beam. As we near the end of the report, illustrative shots of pedestrians and signs and a pipe at a window, and then the final summary, ending on a whimsical shot of something nearby, accompanied by a wry sign-off. If you're lucky, a bit of wordplay fit for a king, or in other words, a regent's treat. Charlie Brooker, Newswipe, London. The style of such filler reports is so overfamiliar, your brain just filters them out, so it's hardly surprising the news sometimes tries to zhuzh things up a bit. Recent years have seen a shift to more emotive, vaguely cinematic reports, pieces that try and convey an emotion, usually a bleak one.
Our worst nightmare's just come true. Someone's been up to no good at the nursery.
But reporters are reporters, not movie directors, which means the tricks they employ, the use of crappy emotive shots and evocative monochrome, sinister reconstructions and shitty moody lighting, is the stuff of terrible films.
The predator would strike at night. Only then would he launch his attack, shining his torch in the face of his elderly victims.
The end result is that visually emotive reports actually provoke the precise opposite reaction to the one I assume they're intending. Sit me in front of a report about abused children full of cliched shots of discarded teddies and haunting swings, and I don't think boo-hoo, I think what a cheesy B-movie. A source said. A source said. There's a phrase you often hear or read in news reports, but what does it mean? Here's investigative journalist and freedom of information campaigner Heather Brooke with her view on anonymity.
When I came, as I'd been a journalist in America, I came to Britain. The first thing I saw was that so much of the stories you read in a newspaper have no attribution at all. It'll be a spokesman for this government department, an official for the police, but nowhere would it have a name. Most people don't notice this at first and they think, well, who cares? Who needs to know the names of these people? There's only really one reason why they would be anonymous, and that is to avoid accountability for what they say. If they were confident about what they're saying, they would put their name behind it. End of story. I was trained, as all American journalists are, that you always name your source. It's a really key point. Now in Britain, the way information disclosure has evolved is that it's a patronage system. It's who you know. And if you know the right people, they'll do you a favour, they'll give you a few little bits of info. If you do name them, there will be some bad feeling held. If you were a parliamentary lobby correspondent, for example, you'd quickly find that people would stop speaking to you. The danger is that because they know their name is not going to be linked with that statement, there's a temptation to bend the truth, to misrepresent the truth, sometimes to just outright lie. Probably the best known example is John Charles de Menezes, the Brazilian electrician who was shot to death in Stockwell Tube. The first thing that happened was some anonymous police spokesman realised it was a mistake. But what they did was they started to run a lot of erroneous information. They were sort of casting this aura of suspicion around him, saying that he was wearing this big puffy jacket, that he'd vaulted the barriers. They also said that the police had identified themselves and they told him to stop, and he ignored them and he'd run through and got on this tube carriage.
They followed him into the station, told him to stop, and when he ran inside a tube carriage, they opened fire.
When they finally had the public inquiry and all these statements were looked into, all those statements were totally false. They were, in fact, lies.
Today's report into whether the police lied about the shooting found that Scotland Yard did mislead the public.
Because we never knew by name who had issued these statements, there was nobody that we as the public could go back to and say, who do we call to account? Forest Gate, another example. Again, it was a botched operation that took up, an entire street with dozens of police officers. They arrested these two men. One of them got shot in the scuffle. Then the smearing started to come into the public domain. There was accusations about how they'd been involved in terrorist activity. One of the brothers of the suspects who'd been out at a protest pictured next to a man wearing a sort of mock suicide belt. And obviously the implication is these are the kind of people we're dealing with. Out of nowhere came this really bizarre accusation that one of the brothers had accessed child pornography.
A computer seized then was examined and allegedly contained photographs of child abuse downloaded from the internet.
Which she totally denied, and there was never any evidence to prove this, and that charge fell away. So then you have to wonder, why did all these charges build up? Anonymous sourcing allows that kind of smearing to happen. The line that they will put out is that we're providing public information, but they're not. That is a total crock. What they are providing is information control, which is completely the opposite of information sharing. As soon as these official spokespeople are named, they're individually accountable, and very often they have to resign. I mean, people think the British press are these, jackals, but the way they just roll over and accept it as if it's fact, as if it's like the word of God has come down and said, this is the way it is. But it isn't a fact, it's what somebody in authority has said. And that's what the public need to know. This is what somebody in authority, preferably named, has told us.
Well, something to think about there. Time for the Week in Bullshit. Society, and as humanoid David Cameron highlights the value of parenting over the value of paupers having money, noted sociologists Dappy and Fazer from N-Dubs plant their buttocks on the This Week sofa to discuss their views on parenting with Andrew Neil, Abbott and Portillo in a thrilling studio debate.
Fraser and Dappy, you're Fraser, you're Dappy, yeah. So we got it right.
Not parenting,
right. Almost right.
Fazer.
Oh, Fazer.
Fazer.
Ah, Yeah, I like it.
How are you guys? Weird?
No.
Yeah, we're great.
Good.
Well, this isn't awkward at all. Anyway, come on, parenting.
One piece of advice I'll give to any parents at the moment, if your child has any sort of talent or anything like that, just make sure you 100% back him.
Encourage it.
The whole way.
Yeah, that is good advice. Parents, you should back your kids. Don't just lock them in a dungeon and deprive them of food and water. Back them. The wide-ranging chat moved on to cover Northern Irish politics.
I'm actually kind of shocked at the MP's wife and what's happened with the whole 19-year-old
Shocking,
thing.
isn't it?
I have to intervene in that. I think it's absolutely...
Now you're taking the moral high ground.
But the very next day, it turned out Dappy might not occupy the moral high ground at all, as it turned out he'd sent threatening messages to a woman who texted the Chris Moyles show to call him vile. As if the poor woman hadn't already suffered enough listening to Chris Moyles. This was ironic, since N-Dubs recently got plenty of coverage for fronting a government anti-bullying campaign. Still, if Dappy gets annoyed at being called vile in a text message, imagine how disrespected he'd feel if we put his photo on the screen and called him a 2-foot prancing mosquito-voiced little titamaboo in a baby's hat and a nincompoop and a twerp and a twit and an oaf and a git and a... Royalty! And as Owlman tours New Zealand, 5 News excitedly captures jubilant scenes of him meeting people's offspring.
She met Prince William and he said how pretty she was, but he said he couldn't kiss her because of royal protocols.
Maybe you just didn't fancy her. But it wasn't all fun, as he suffered a minor injury while playing with some kiddie winks.
Somebody threw a ball and it hit him, didn't it?
Yeah. Me.
Was that you? What happened?
Oh, I hit him in the nuts.
Oh, well, there goes the Windsor dynasty.
Health.
Health is a reliable source of filler because it affects literally every body, and each week there's something new that will kill you. Yeah, try and stay calm, because what you're doing now could kill you, according to this sobering CBS News report about a man who suffered a heart attack after years of TV viewing.
With every hour of television watched, there was an 18% increased chance of dying from heart disease. So every hour counts.
There's something to think about next time you're watching Waterloo Road. So, 90 seconds of valuable news time filled, and what have we learned? Well, we've learned that laziness is bad for you, and that if you want to survive, you're going to have to spend the rest of your life, like Captain Cardiac here, desperately paddling away on a fitness machine, like a rat in a lab repeatedly hitting a pedal for vitamins and air. But TV isn't the only menace, butter is deadly too. So deadly a leading heart surgeon recently called for it to be banned.
This is fierce stuff in a nation of butter eaters, isn't it?
I'll say we can't get enough butter in our office. We're butter mad.
Can we have just a little bit of butter on our bread?
No, Turnbull, you can't.
And just to clarify, you're not being paid by any low-fat spread manufacturer?
Oh, no. This is just my passion.
What, you've got a passion for banning butter? But while the doctor isn't receiving payment from any low-fat spread manufacturers, KTB, the whizzy website-owning PR company which brought his comments to the media's attention in the first place, is. Namely, it receives payment from Unilever, manufacturers of Flora, and I can't believe it's not butter. On quiet days when newsrooms are in urgent need of off-the-shelf pre-packaged content, it's easy for PR companies to gently nudge stories involving their clients into the public sphere.
Controversial stuff. Very interesting.
Oh, when I watch health coverage like this, I can't believe it's not better.
Animals.
Animals are almost as funny as foreigners. They're definitely cuter, which is why we cry when we run them over, which isn't the case with, say, Italians.
Chihuahuas are often the dog of choice for celebs who want a handbag-sized hound.
Which sounds like justification enough to send the incisive and brilliant Peter Lane to look at a small dog. How small is she, Pete?
Lulu and a tin of beans. Lulu and a cup. Lulu and the TV remote control.
Well, I hope this is the start of a 2-hour dog size comparison special.
And if you're struggling to picture Lulu's weight, she's exactly the same as this bag of pasta.
The unseemly war of words between Conan O'Brien and Jay Leno may have sparked interest in the US media of late, but one man who'll be distinctly unimpressed, whatever the outcome, is our American correspondent and drunk, Doug Stanhope, who's coming up now.
I'm Doug Stanhope, and that's why I drink. You know, more Americans get their news from late-night comedy talk show hosts like Leno and Letterman than any other news source. I don't know if that's true, but I've been told that. They say time plus tragedy equals comedy, and the networks have figured out how to boil that amount of time down to about 5 hours. It's part of the system in America where they spend all day ratcheting up this very important breaking news.
The president announced that he would send 30,000 more troops to that region.
This just in, Obama's sending 30,000 more troops to Afghanistan. Is he breaking a promise?
I'm Shepard Smith. The news starts with deployment orders for war.
And by 11 o'clock at night, some late-night buffoon in a suit comes on and tells you the exact same news stories, only he's got a funny punchline.
Hey, the Today Show was live from Afghanistan this morning. It went head-to-head with Afghanistan's #1 morning show, Good Morning and Death to America.
Thank you. Thank you. And that makes people, oh, it's okay. It's comedy. We'll just go to bed. Who cares if our kids are dying? Because he made it funny. I think that's why I've always hated that current events observational comedy, because there's no bloodlust in it. There's no rage. They just notice and move on.
Roman Polanski is out of prison. He's under house arrest in his Swiss chalet. You know, I saw something at his chalet I thought was really disturbing. Show the footage here. This is his actual chalet.
Months he's been locked up in a Zurich jail. And then when the Swiss court said if he posted $4.5
million... Look at the sign, kids stay free.
Hey, have you heard this in the news? Did you ever notice this? And you go, yeah, I have. It made me want to kill people. I want to buy a gun because of it. Who's responsible for it? Let's find the guy. Let's burn down his tool shed. Let's kidnap his kid. Let's send a message. What do we do next? Nothing? We don't do anything. We just notice and move on. That's good enough for you? I want someone dead. You know, Charlie Chaplin said something to the effect that humor is an act of defiance, that we must laugh in the face of our helplessness against the forces of nature or go insane. And where is he now? Dead.
Music! And Sky News' Jeremy Thompson shows off his cool street lingo during a live discussion about Susan Boyle's glaring lack of a Brits nomination.
She, in a way, has been dissed by this.
I love you, Jeremy Thompson. The link-up also featured an exciting live interview with Dappy and the rest of N-Dubs. Surprisingly, for a live interview on a news channel, Dappy was asked no tricky questions about the texts or the anti-bullying campaign whatsoever. Instead, they were allowed to moan that the X Factor stars they were up against had an unfair advantage.
Do you think they'll get a bigger vote, or do you think... They've had 16 million viewers for 6 weeks every day, so yeah.
Of course they're going to get more of a vote.
Yeah, but come on, at least 30 people would have seen Dappy and Fazel's parenting tips on This Week. Stern anchorman Jeremy Thompson even wished N-Dubs well, sort of.
Thank you very much indeed, Steve, and best of luck to N-Dub, who he was just speaking to there.
Yes, best of luck to N-Dub. He's hoping they beat Jalus. Yes, Jalus, who Sky also spoke to, together with Ernest singing ice cream cornet LaRue. In case you don't know who LaRue is, she's basically Jedward for people who hate music. And that was that. It was a glittering showbiz triumph for Sky, which ended with possibly the most astonishing segue in news history.
Thanks, Steve. More from there later. And talking about a show full of celebrities, here's Bill Clinton just arriving at Port-au-Prince Airport.
Well, that's all we've got time for this week. Goodbye.
And the TV moment we've all been waiting for will be finally upon us tomorrow evening. The long-awaited Season 3 of Mad Men kicks off with a delicious double bill at 10. Stay with us here on BBC4 Now, though, as we're off to Nerdstock next.